Bigfoot, Dogman, Jersey Devil, and others. Are they real? Misidentifications? Or the most cleverly disregarded reality of all time? Come into the cabin and sit down and let's try to find out together. Hey, welcome back to the cabin. I'm Robbie, and today I'm joined by Johnny and Norman. I'm going to have them introduce themselves here in a quick second. We're going to be talking about an encounter here in Pickens County, or actually in Greenville County, from just a couple of weeks ago that Johnny had. And I'm going to let Johnny introduce himself, but I'm going to let Norman introduce himself first, and then Johnny can introduce himself and jump into the conversation. Norman?
Evening, all. I'm Norman Meredith. I live in the upstate South Carolina. I'm a full-time EMT, former military medic, and paranormal enthusiast. So
Good.
This is a new step for me.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Got to start somewhere, right?
Of course.
Johnny, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm just Johnny. I'm a prior military, Army aviation, and I love hiking the hills of the Carolinas.
Yeah, and kind of hiking the hills of Carolina is what got you in this this little thing we're going to talk about, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, me and a girlfriend, we've been doing some waterfalling, and we wound up in North Greenville there. Neat little kind of a secluded place. Not really much on your tourist maps, and we had a neat little encounter.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of told me a little bit about it, and we actually met up that spot and looked at it. It's really a nice place. If you were going to think you're going to see one, that's where you would look at it. So, I guess let's start with your encounter. Y'all were hiking and looking at waterfalls, and I think you told me that y'all kind of just stopped just to cool off and chill out for a little bit, and that's when the encounter started.
Yeah, we just decided to take a break. There was a nice little deep hole to get off in and not swim, but, it ain't that deep, but get in there and cool off. A nice sunny day, and there was a big flat rock you could wade over to, and we just kind of sat up on it and were hanging out, and next thing I know, I hear a tree break. And I know the difference between deadfall and a green tree break. It sounded like a 38 special going off in the middle of silence. It got my attention. I wasn't front loaded for this. I had no idea. But it got my attention.
I imagine so.
Then I look over, and about 50 foot away from me, I can't see through the thicket, but there's one tree, maybe 18-inch diameter at the base, shaking violently in all directions, and there was no wind. You could shake a stick of celery. That's what it resembled. There was no sounds, no slapping, no grunting, no claws slipping, just eerie.
So no vocalization. All you heard was the tree snap, and you turned around to look and saw the tree shaking.
And the sounds came from the same direction.
Wow.
Exactly the same direction.
So what'd you do after you saw the tree shaking? I mean, what was you thinking, rather, I guess would be the thing most people would want to know.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Fair enough.
Calmly, I asked her, I drew her attention. She saw it. She heard the tree break. And she said, trees break all the time. It's not that big a deal. I said, okay. Still time to go.
So I take it y'all
gracefully
backed out. Tactical retreat.
Yes.
Or tactical withdrawal, rather.
I didn't want to get her excited or scared, so I just kept it at it's time to go. And she followed lead, and we got out of there.
Oh. So when you said in the middle of silence, is that something that you noticed there wasn't any other kind of ambient noise around, like insects or any?
It wasn't a creepy, eerie silence. It was just, there was no breeze, not much of one. There was no come to think of it, I don't think I've ever heard critters up there. That was about my second visit up there. It wasn't my first. It was weird.
Well, I know when you and I met up there, I could hear, crickets and things like that, but I didn't hear anything. I don't think anything bigger than that. So you remember if you heard any of that going on, or is that?
I hate to say this. I have tinnitus really bad. I hear crickets 24/7.
Well,
and
I sympathize with you. I have that too. It was probably not as bad as yours because I can still hear the crickets. But
yeah, that day me and you were up there. It was like, I don't know if they're real or if it's in my head, but you confirmed they were real.
Well, they may have been in both of our heads. Who knows? If we both got tinnitus. Norman, what do you think?
I think it's an interesting encounter. What I'm curious is, as being former military, sometimes we develop a sixth sense, when you've been out in service, when the situation doesn't feel right, or you feel like somebody's got eyes on you. Did you have any kind of feeling like that?
I never felt eerie. At any point, I've never felt like that whole prey feeling that you get. I never felt that. I've never felt pressure or eyes on you like a cat or a bear. I've had eyes on me. I've had that feel.
Wow. I guess getting into mine and your little excursion up there, Johnny. And I said something to you when we were up there that I felt like we were being watched. I think I said it a couple of times up there. I did say this on DA's show the other day, DA Ex Machina, because that was part of the whole show on that Sunday night special show was about mine and your encounter, which you had an emergency and you couldn't be there. You want to get into a little bit of what me and you encountered and ran up on?
That, and I still never felt any pressure all the way out.
Well, I didn't feel pressure. I just, I told you that I felt like we were being watched because you asked me if I thought it was still in the area, and I said, well, I feel like we're being watched. It's just not close enough to where it would.
When we got down there where we had the visual, that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I heard something pacing us on the ridge.
Mm-hmm.
I only heard it 3 times, and they weren't like consecutive. It was like I heard a couple steps, and then I heard that one step. And that's when we stopped, observed the game trail, and
Found what we found.
I'm going to let you talk about the tracks.
So, after we met got to the place where Norman had his encounter, after we got done talking about that, we started walking back out. We had seen some caves walking on the way in, and we kind of wanted to see them on the way out and stop and make some marks on the trail so we would be able to find them when we came back. Because Norman was on his way but couldn't get to us as quick as we needed to get there. He had other things going on that day. So we get stopped right there in front of the cave. We make our breaks. And in tracking, we have a term called track traps, which anybody that knows what I'm talking about knows what it is. But for those who don't, a track trap is something like sand or mud or anything like that will hold a track. And that's why it's called a track trap. And I had just told Johnny as we were walking out, I said, this trail is full of track traps. So as smart as these things probably are, they're not going to stay on this a whole lot. You may catch one at the most, maybe 2 footprints. You're not going to see a whole lot of them. Well, as I said that, Johnny kind of looked to our right, and he said, well, that looks like going up that hill is tore up a little bit. I said, okay, well, let me go over and see if I can see anything. And as I'm looking down, I thought I saw a heel impression. And as I bent over to look, closer at the heel impression, I looked down just to make sure I wasn't standing on any of the spoor. And when I looked down, I saw what looked to me like a toe print. Now, I didn't say what I found. I just called Johnny over there and I said, hey, what does this look like to you? And immediately Johnny looked at it and he said, oh my gosh, is that a toe? Or something of that nature. And we started seeing, I think we saw like maybe 3 or 4 separate footprints and that heel impression, and it was from just the ball of the foot forward. And I put my hand down in front of the ball, where the heel of my hand was at the very back part of that impression, and it was longer than my hand. And my hand is not small; it's 8.5 inches. So you're looking at half of a print that's 8.5 inches. So you're thinking at least 15, maybe 16-inch foot.
The toes were well over 3 inches.
Yeah. That's a big print. And so as we were looking at those, Johnny took a lighter. That's the only thing we had on us right then for scales. We took some pictures, took some sticks, and kind of pointed where the indentations for the toes were. And as I was finishing up taking those pictures, Johnny walked across the trail to see if he could find where it lined up, kind of going down the rest of the hill. And he gets up there and he finds where the trail comes in. Of course, it's right in line with it. He calls me over, and I come over to look at that. And while we're looking at that, he happens to look up the hill and catch some movement. Now, if I put an estimate on this, Johnny, I'd say the top of that bank was probably 60 feet tall off of where we were at, and then probably another 100 feet, maybe 120 feet.
Pretty accurate, yeah.
Further back. As you told me to turn around and look, because you asked me if I felt any wind. I said, no, there's no wind blowing. You said, well, I just saw movement on top of that ridge. Just tell me what you saw. And there was a rock up there, and I would say you could probably park a Honda Civic behind this rock. So whatever it was over the top of this rock. And, you've heard the term tree peaking. Well, this one was rock peaking, because it was it was moving from our left to right, and I think you got a little bit better, because by the time I turned around and found where it was at, it had already kind of moved halfway behind.
It was in the center of the rock by the time I got you over there.
Yeah.
But I saw it peak around its right, my left.
Yeah.
Of the rock. I saw its head on the side, and then I saw the exact same shape, just 3 foot away, pop up, go down, and by the time you got over there, it was about 5 foot more towards the center of the rock. And it did the same thing. We watched this thing peek its head about 5 times.
Like a child or curious adult?
I'm wondering about adolescent.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not joking when I say that thing was big enough to park a Civic behind. So it had to be at least 6.5, 7 feet tall, if it wasn't crouched down. If it was standing straight up. So obviously it ain't a deer,
right?
And to me, it looked brown in color. Johnny said he thought that was more of just
I saw like a silverish highlights, but it could have been the sun, through the leaves of the tree, because we still had decent sunlight.
Right.
I could have, in my vision, ain't terrible, but it's not 2020.
So it's possible it could have been an older adult then, if you think you saw silver highlights, because everybody sees things from a different angle.
That's why I asked him what color he saw. He saw purely darker than me. I was catching highlights. But the size and the shape never changed.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, it's square this time, it's rectangle this time, now it's round. No, it has the exact same shape every time I saw it.
Well, it's like with people. Robbie's got salt and pepper in his beard. I've got a little salt and pepper in my hair, but depending on the angles you look, you may not see it. Like from Robbie's perspective, he's seen one color, and then from your perspective, you've seen something different. So that would be a normal thing possibly, because you're looking at, from different angles, a creature. I'm going to use the term creature for possibly being older, because you've seen silver. Silver generally generates age. It's like with my dog, he's gotten older, so he's got silver now. One time, he didn't have it, but I would say it's probably good an older adult that you'd be seeing, and he was just being very wise about making any type of contact, or was curious to see what y'all were doing in his terrain.
Yeah, and we maybe a minute and a half we sat there and watched it, and Johnny said, well, what do you want to do now? I said, well, let's just ease out and see what it does. And it paced us all the way out. There was no aggression, nothing like that. But like you said, it's just like, okay, what are you doing? That's the general feeling I got. I didn't feel like we were in any kind of danger at that point.
I've come to understand from some of the research I've done and readings about Bigfoot encounters is that they're very good at pacing people. And that's a hard skill to do normally with people, unless you're in, like say, being a soldier, you're marching in lockstep. I mean, for a creature to do that is a high level of intelligence, I believe. A lot more than we give him credit for. And just it being able to do that, it's like almost going into a sensory thing where it's like it's able to anticipate what you're going to do next. And that speaks volumes for possibilities if we can ever make contact with a creature like this.
Oh, there's no doubt they're intelligent. I mean, that's, that you can't. As Lance and I talked about on our very first show, it's one thing to have like a dog that's smart that you can teach tricks to, but it's another thing to have sentience and understand
exactly
what things are. And I think these things have a sentience about them. I think they understand, maybe not necessarily they understand us, or they're
able to interpret intention.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
And, I think a lot of that is, and we've talked about this on DA show, if you look at some of these sightings and you hear some people say, oh man, it was like mine and Johnny's. I felt no threat, nothing.
Because you weren't bringing threat upon it. You were there to explore.
Maybe that, but I think there are different types.
Yeah.
And, like you hear some people that, they were just camping and they felt like they were lucky to get out of there alive. So if you go to use what DA's talked about with the Gukwi and the other different types that all these different First Nation tribes have described them as, I think all these different sightings, depending on where you're at, what the situation was, depends on what type you was dealing with.
Yeah. And also can go back to is how you feel when you go into this environment. If, like with the dog, it can understand if you're fearful of it, and it's going to react accordingly. And it's the creature's sense. We're going to say Bigfoot's senses may be the point where they're sharper than the dog. It can feel if you're afraid, if you're calm, if you're nervous, and kind of react accordingly. And then also with the variations, you got the hostile ones that'll be just like, hey, you're fair game, regardless of your intentions or how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, every time I go in the woods, it's not arrogant or cocky, but I don't bring fear when I go in. I bring maybe a sense of wonder. And I'm generally armed at least with a couple good knives, but I don't think of them as weapons. So it's not like they could read my mind and see my inventory.
Right.
I don't think of them. I think of them as just tools.
That's the way I look at it.
I got a can of snuff, pack of cigarettes, a lighter, and a couple knives. I don't think of them in that way. So,
and I think the biggest thing too with you is saying you go into nature seeking wonder, to experience relaxation, see something new or different maybe, and the Bigfoot responds to this. Where compared to someone who is aggressive and who has the thoughts of I'm going in there to trap one, he may not see nothing, or he may get a response of some sort. I've heard rocks being thrown, noises, hollering. There's a variety of different responses. It just depends on what you bring to the table when you go out into their territory. That I think makes the big difference.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, if you go back and look at different encounters, like the Ape Canyon in Washington, where those miners, and I'm not trying to turn this into an environmental type thing, but they were in there mining. They were taken from the environment, and they all felt like they were pretty lucky to get out of there. Now,
didn't one of them shoot?
I think so.
I think they shot at one out of fear, and that's what brought the gates of hell down on them.
I think you're right, Johnny. I think one of them did take a shot at him, But they all said that, they felt like they were lucky they got out of there alive. Or I don't know if the shot was on the outside or if they were shooting I know they were shooting while they were inside the cabin when the attack actually started happening. But I don't know if one of them shot before that. Maybe I'd have to do some research on that. But there again, they were not there to enjoy the environment for number one, like we're talking about. So if we're going to say that that's something to do with it, then that's a perfect example of that,
right?
Because they were not there to enjoy the environment; they were there to take from the environment. So, but you got plenty of others that people were there just to enjoy the environment, just camping, minding their own business, and stuff like that happens. But now, do we know for sure if there were ulterior motives to those people? No, nobody's going to know that except that person. I mean, all we know is what they say. Yeah, I was there to just camp. Who knows what they were really doing?
Well, I think sometimes with campers, they have a little bit of apprehension going in because they're always afraid of the bear or the unknown or some creature, some other animals that are in the forest that the rangers might say or locals say, hey, watch out for the bear, watch out for the cougar. So they go in there apprehensive, or watch out for the snake, common things. And for some people, it doesn't bother them. And other people, if they're new to camping or been doing it a little bit and they have that apprehension because they're fearful of running into wildlife, then a response occurs.
Yeah, I mean, that's always plausible that's part of it too. It's just whether it's just carrying that fear or that apprehension, as you say, no matter what it's about, they could pick up on that. Just like you said, like going back to the dog situation, dogs can pick up on how you are. I mean, that's why they always say if your dog likes somebody, you can probably trust them because dogs can read people.
Right. I think it's the same thing. Bigfoot and its cousins have the same ability, but at a higher degree that we're not accustomed to.
I've always had good results in the woods. I don't go in as that loud, obnoxious tourist. No loud music, no loud talking, walk quiet. I've walked up on so many critters, black bears, tons of snakes, love them, play with them all. But I'm not that noisy, obnoxious. When you hear about like the LBL deal, they had music blaring. They were just being a bunch of damn noisy hippies.
Yeah.
And, bad things happened. You don't want somebody coming in your backyard making a bunch of racket. No. You're going to come out pissed off, too.
Yeah, they're not going to call the police. They're going to handle it themselves.
Yeah, it's like that cranky next-door neighbor.
Yeah.
So.
But like you say, you go with the intent of peace and wonder and to be part of. Or a lot of people look at sometimes maybe going out into the wilderness as an escape, but then they bring a little bit of apprehension, but they also bring in, like you say, the noise. They wake up the old grouchy old man next door because they're not accepting where they're at. They're trying to break up the monotony. Instead of enjoying what's there, they're bringing in noise. They're bringing in sense maybe that they shouldn't be bringing in. Their behavior is loud, obnoxious, especially if they're under influence of alcohol or inhalants. Yeah, that'll play a big factor, I think, because they're experiencing something that our Bigfoot doesn't want to really experience because a form of empathy, maybe. It's just they don't want to feel this because it's overwhelming. It's strange to them. It bothers them. It's like I remember one guy told me in order to get his neighbors calmed down, he'd play classical music at a certain level, and it would drive his neighbors crazy. He didn't play it loud, didn't play it soft. He played it at one tone. And so I think we're presenting tones on a subliminal level that can aggravate a Bigfoot or make him feel like, okay, you're all right. You're the good kid that throws my newspaper, lands it on the porch, doesn't do no damage. I can accept you. You're passing through. You're doing what you do. It's what we bring to the woods, I think, that reflects the responses that we get. That's my opinion.
Well, and like we say, nobody's an expert on this. It's all opinion and speculation. there's three of us in here right now talking. All three of us probably have a different opinion on everything that has got to do with this because, you know, who knows? Nobody really knows. So, you know, there are people who believe that they're trans-dimensional. I don't believe that. I believe they're just an animal. But there's people who believe that. So who am I to say that they're right, wrong, or indifferent?
It's true. I mean, it depends what you believe and how you believe and what you're willing to share and open up to and find a common ground with yourself, your partner, or somebody else on the subject. You know, as long as you can find the common ground and not worry about the outer layers that might be considered fluff to some, you know, and don't be a stickler or a zealot, you're going to find that communication with other researchers, people that encounters, you treat it at the base level.
Well, in talking about that, I think that's a good segue to let Johnny tease us with this last little thing that he was talking about, because I think that's a good segue to that, don't you, Johnny?
Yeah. You know, I forgot to mention earlier, before I told her, let's get the hell out of here, I actually tested the woo thing a little bit. I did project a little mind speak that we're leaving. Sorry we interrupted. And that's all I didn't beg for safety or nothing. I didn't go into all that. I was just like, sorry, we're leaving. We're leaving now.
You're showing respect, which is
exactly
a lot of people don't do.
Show respect, don't show fear. I don't care if it's a grizzly bear or water moccasin. I mean, you treat them with respect. Some you got to kill, some you can walk around, some you need to run from. But it was... So anyhow, let's fast forward a week. Things were, after me and Robbie's encounter, we had marked a couple places, well, the main sighting place, and then where the trackway was. But on my way in, I couldn't find the caves. On my way out, I couldn't find the caves. And I know where they're at.
Interesting.
And I had zero, and I basically reenacted the same events that we did on the first encounter at that rock, except for I added one thing. I think I might save that for the next talk. I did a controlled experiment twice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting to see the results.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all right.
Are you free tomorrow night, Robbie?
What time tomorrow night?
After 6.
I get off at 5:30, 6 o'clock, so yes, I'll be free.
You want to meet up at the same place?
We can do that.
Because this experiment, I need a witness.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well,
We're gonna end on that note.
Guess y'all have to tune in next time to find out what this experiment was and find out what happened. So, all right. Well, we're gonna be wrapping it up for this episode in the cabin. I want to thank Johnny and Norman for joining us. Hopefully they're going to be back more permanent, because like a lot of you know, Lance had some things that he had to step away and take care of. He may be back once, twice. He may come back. Who knows? We don't, he's still a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, but he just got some things he needs to get squared away. He didn't step away because there was anything wrong between me and him, so I just want everybody to know that. It's just he had some things personal-wise that he had to get taken care of. So Johnny and Norman have said they're going to try to help out so we can keep the show running. So, Johnny, got anything else you want to say?
I can't wait to see where this goes.
I'm curious to see what happens now. You got me very intrigued.
All right. Well, I guess we'll tune in next time and find out. Thanks for stepping by the cabin, guys. We'll talk to you later.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.